Welcome back to Woodford County Hometown Highlights, the podcast where we explore the stories, people, and history that make Woodford County such a special place to call home. I'm your host, Talor Bennett, and today I'm joined once again by our local historian, librarian, Cheri from the History Room at the Woodford County Library. Cheri, welcome back.
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. So I'm excited today because today we're talking about two things Kentucky is known for, bourbon and horses, which honestly feels very Woodford County coded. So let's start with bourbon because Woodford County has really embraced being known as the birthplace of bourbon. For people who may not know, what makes Woodford County so important in bourbon history?
You're asking me that question?
Yeah.
The reason I say that is because I just want to come out of the gate by saying I may be the local history librarian, but I am not a bourbon expert. So please don't anybody come with the pitchforks and hunt me down if I say the wrong thing. But I do want to tell you that I happen to live in Scott County. And I remember when you guys came out with that slogan, I was like, oh, wow, them's fighting words. I can't believe. But, it's funny. There are a few things that I do know about, and I do know a lot about state history. And, I'm used to looking at, the broader picture here. And so a couple things I think that we have to realize to retain that title. I think it is a title that makes sense. And I will proudly, I'm sold, you guys. I will proudly wear the t-shirt now. I was actually shopping out there just a few minutes ago. So I think there's a couple things to keep in mind when people hear that. Couple things with the settlement of Kentucky. When European settlers were coming in here, everybody was making spirits. Like this was kind of like, making your own soap and things like that. Everybody was doing that because we were all farmers. It was the easiest way to sell your crops was to make it liquid and then transport it. And so that knowledge, that recipe of being able to turn your crops into liquid, into spirits, was a general knowledge that a lot of people had coming in here. So the idea of who actually created the very first bourbon, I think that's something that no one will ever know exactly when the very first, what we know it to be as bourbon, tasted like, right? I mean, if we went back in time and tried to taste what they were producing back then, I don't think it's not going to taste the same. It would taste really bizarre. However, the land of Kentucky, we know, had a huge impact on that development into that product that became bourbon. And, from the limestone water to just our atmosphere, just the growing conditions and everything. And when you also think about how land shifted, it depends on what time frame you're talking about the bourbon, when it was actually what we know as bourbon was produced. If it was anything pre-statehood, well, Virginia should kind of get the credit because technically we were Virginia, all of us. We were all Virginia. And then if you go into counties, we had the three original counties, Lincoln, Jefferson, and Fayette. So we were part of Fayette at that time. So if it was in a certain time frame, and then Fayette might get the credit. For Scott County's claim, which of course they have something very similar. I think it's like where bourbon is born, something like that. So for them, they like to claim Elijah Craig. Well, we do too, right? And so Elijah Craig, and where he was doing that, Georgetown was technically like settled first, but then they abandoned it and then moved elsewhere. But as the counties are taking shape, Woodford County takes this odd shape. It breaks away from Fayette County, and it stretches all the way north to the Ohio River. I don't think a lot of people realize that we even included things like the state capital. We included Franklin County, all of Scott County. We included Kenton and Campbell County up near Cincinnati. So we had a huge footprint there up before 1800. So anything produced in that footprint, we would get credit for that, right? So, if you want to talk about land and land development, that is actually something you could take into consideration. However, I feel like the slogan is way more tied to the development of bourbon as a product. That took generations. That took some amazing people to, experiment with, the curing traditions and all these different things in order to make what it is that we actually call bourbon, and with the consistent bourbon production in our county. I mean, the big player names, the Peppers, the Crow, the Craigs. I mean, you cannot tell bourbon's history, bourbon's story without Woodford County. You just can't do it. So I'm sold. I'm good. But again, I'm not an expert, so.
Do you think growing up around bourbon history here almost makes locals take it for granted a little bit? I ask that because visitors come here all the time and they're very amazed by it. Meanwhile, we're just casually driving past history like every day.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I think it's funny, even in the rain driving in today, you know, one thing I was hit by is that in spring, Kentucky just blossoms. It's just so beautiful, and people pay thousands of dollars to get here to see all this. And I think that it's really interesting that they get into the bourbon zone. They get in here, everything. Oh my gosh, from the hotel that's bourbon themed we have right across the street from the library. It's beautiful and all of this stuff. But I would also encourage people, go take those tours, because you're going to learn so much more about your county and bourbon production and everything. And in fact, I was recently working with Woodford Reserve when they were producing their new history tour that you can take. So it's a little bit more history focused, and yet they also let you taste some different recipes, different types of bourbons that actually tie back to history, and they make you a cocktail that's historic. I mean, frankly, the idea of tasting history is fantastic, right? That's a wonderful way to experience history anyway, and it's right here in your backyard, all of it. So
if you can go back in time and have a conversation with any figure from Woodford County bourbon history, who would it be and why?
Oh my. Okay, actually, I think I might go back to Oscar Pepper. And one of the reasons being is with the Pepper family, he really did produce this like dynasty. And I don't think he intended to, because that property up there is actually really old. I mean, it goes back, for a long time. And, over time, you're seeing the development of all these different buildings, and, the manufacturing is changing, the bottling is changing, and all this kind of stuff along the way. And then, of course, there's breaks in their history, with LeBron and Graham and all of that. And then eventually with Woodford Reserve. I would love to go back and ask him, like, did he have any kind of inkling that this industry was actually going to develop the way that it developed? Like, is this just to make some money here locally or regionally or whatever, to just streamline this process a bit? Or did you have an inkling this was going to be big? I mean, it's different. It's a different product. It's different than, say whiskey coming out of Virginia. It is different. And so with the water and just the environment and everything, like, did he have any idea what he was actually doing? I think that would have been a cool thing to ask him. So,
So you can't talk about bourbon without talking about Derby. So now let's talk Derby. Because me and Cheri actually got to attend this year, which still feels unreal, and we still talk about to this day. So what was your favorite part about Derby weekend overall?
I will say, if we're going to stick to bourbon, I will say this was my very first mint julep I ever had was at the Kentucky Derby. So I actually even held off. They're trying to hand me these mint juleps at Oaks, and I'm like, no, just keep giving me the lilies. I'll take the lilies. Those are like cosmos anyway. Yeah. You love the lilies.
I was too scared for the bourbon.
But I did. It was almost towards the end. Actually, it was almost towards the big race. And I realized I had been running around doing all kinds of things all day long, too many photo ops and things. And I was like, I haven't had a mint julep yet. Oh my gosh. But I had to have it in the glass, right? I mean, they walk around with those trays. And the first guy I walked up to, and he's handing me this plastic. I'm like, no.
I want the
Where is the glass? And he goes, we're almost out. I don't know. You may have to go downstairs for that. So I did. Every guy I ran into had the plastic. And I finally went to actually the Old Forester booth, and they were actually making them right there. And it turned out to be fantastic. It was a really good one. As other members of our party actually kind of, it's like, the ones in the trays aren't that great, but they tasted mine. They're like, where did you get this? This is a fantastic mint julep.
Every time you say that, I regret not trying one.
Yeah. It was great.
Maybe next year. The energy was insane, though. The hats, the outfits, the tradition, the crowd. It honestly felt like stepping into a movie. And then the race itself was absolute chaos to witness in person. So, Cheri, we also need to discuss, because I'm still mad at you about this, how you basically predicted the winner and still didn't place the bet.
Well, let's just say correct history correction. I placed a very small bet on Golden Tempo when I should have bet it all on Golden Tempo
Mm-hmm.
because I had again, this was our very first Derby. I mean, I'm in my 50s. I had never been. I'm an eighth generation Kentucky, and I had never been to the Derby. And I always swore that if I did go, I wanted to have enough money to sit in the stands. I was not going to do infield. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
this whole, the hat experience, everything. And it's funny, Talor and I are also kind of Disney adults too, right? So we can do some Disney bounding when we have to go to Florida and all that kind of thing. And so I started to tying a little bit of history into my outfit as it was developing. And part of that was because I had whenever Derby season comes around, I watch the Disney movie Secretariat. And it was actually made by Disney, just FYI. So there's some Disneyizing that happened with that movie. But the character, or should I say the historical figure in there, which is Penny Chenery Tweedy, and she's wearing this little gold racing horse with a jockey on it, little pin. And I watch that movie every year because it's really good. It puts you in derby mood. It's like watching a Christmas movie at Christmas, and so it's great. And I was watching that, and she's wearing this little pin. I was like, oh, you know what? This is great. My colors are kind of evolving into the navy and white that was almost Secretariat's colors. It was definitely the blue and white. And I shopped local. I went down to Bluegrass Traditions. I got my hat for my, and I even got that. It was a jacket they had there that actually kind of turned the whole outfit on its ear, but it worked out great. So
Wait, your jacket was gold.
it was, I know. I know. It was gold and
Wow.
tempo. It was gold and silver and white roses. But the navy dress and the hat that had white roses and everything. But so I bought a pin to wear just like that. And we had just had the Martha Lane Collins event. And in the photograph she had almost the same pin on that she was wearing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is a girl power thing. This is fantastic. And then I also realized in my own history, I was a kid. My parents took us on like kind of a staycation in Kentucky. My grandparents owned a big farm in Bourbon County. So we would come down and we would stay there all the time. And so we decided to do this like Kentucky tour kind of staycation. Grandparents' farm was the home base, and we'd go to all these different historic places in Kentucky. So Fort Boonesborough and Harrodsburg, all these different things. And my mom always wanted to go through Dunkin' Taverns in Paris. And so we went through that. And there were a couple ladies on the tour with us. And they said, yeah, you guys have been so great. I think after this tour, we're going to go over to Claiborne Farms and meet Secretariat. And they're like, do you want to come with us? And we're like, yes, we'd love to come see Secretariat. So the ladies, once we got to the farm, the ladies drove on and we got our own private meeting with Secretariat. I was about 12 or 13. I can't remember exactly. And my little brother, they even offered to put my little brother on Secretariat's back, and my mom was like, no, this is not happening. He was so powerful and so amazing. And my dad was a photographer as well. So the rumors or the stories about him posing for photographers, totally true. He did all of that. So I went back before the Derby and I also bought a little Secretariat pin, so kind of history bounding my Derby experience again. And I went back to the pictures of our family with Secretariat, and my mom was wearing navy and white, and I didn't even realize any of that. And then we were in the hotel room that morning because we're like, I don't know who to bet on. I don't know. I really am not knowledgeable about any of this stuff. And they did a feature on Cheri DeVoe and Golden Tempo, and you're like, you gotta bet on her. I'm like, yeah, you're right. I forgot there's a woman trainer. I gotta do that. So I'm like betting all day, and I did bet on her, but just not much. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
just kind of across the board kind of thing. And so if I had bet on her, what I had bet on some of the others, I would have paid for my Derby experience and then some. So I was excited though. My very first Derby was such a historic moment for women. I was just absolutely thrilled. What a Derby to experience. Like, wow.
And I was just about to ask, did it feel different watching history happen in real time while like we was there compared to just watching it on the TV?
Yeah, I think, we were talking about, the crowds. I mean, it's 150,000 people that come to this. And, we're talking about, wow, would I choose to do Derby again, or would I choose to do like one of the other races that week? Because it seems like people go out and have a really great time. And we were talking about Oaks and everything, and it's like I don't think you zero in on the history until the Derby's about to run. It's like that's when the atmosphere changes, the energy changes, everything is different, and you hear the song, you hear the bugle, even though the bugle's been playing every time there's a race, right? You've been hearing it all day, but you hear it this time, and it's like something is just electric in the
I
air,
feel like it
right?
got quiet for
It
like a
did.
couple seconds
It
right
did.
before
Yes.
the race.
And all those stands that looked empty most of the day were
But
suddenly
around that-
packed.
yes.
Yeah, suddenly packed. And I felt like, I tell you, as a historic moment for me, though, I felt a lot of confusion as I'm watching them. Because they're announcing all this stuff, right? And you kind of, in all the roar of the crowd, you kind of hear maybe who's winning, who's behind, who's whatever. And I remember at the end, they don't flash it to you on a big screen. They don't tell you who won. And I remember going, yay, I don't know who won. Like I literally Googled it on my phone going, who won the Derby? Because they had to post later. They posted unofficial results on the big screen. And so then I could see it. And I took a picture of that. So in case they flashed it away or whatever. But I've then going back later on and watching on the video, watching when Cheri won and everything. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. I wish I could have seen her because we were in the Ford First Turn area. So, which I loved the view because we got to see them even
Walking
parading after they had won. It was a beautiful moment. And so I loved that view and everything. It's just, but we can't see, we couldn't see anything. But
Yeah.
most people can.
But we did see them walking out to the front. And her group was the most hypest group.
Yes.
And in my head, I was like, they're about to lose. They had too much energy.
Right.
They had so much energy
We're
compared to
hyped,
everyone
man.
else.
Yes.
Yeah, I take that back.
Yes. And I love too, though. That was funny. Me and walking comfortably. I think maybe that's a Disney thing. Like it's because we walked 18 miles.
Yes,
That day.
probably more.
Over those 2 days, we walked 18 miles, and I was like, wow. I remember debating with you. I'm like, well, I've got these really pretty shoes, but I've got tennis shoes. I really, really want to wear tennis shoes. And so on Oaks, I wore pink tennis shoes, went with my dress. And on, for Derby, they weren't quite tennis shoes. They were Skechers, but they didn't really look like tennis shoes. They were kind of slip-ons, but I was like, I have no regrets. I am so glad. And then I watched the whole feature about Cheri and her tennis shoes, her custom painted tennis shoes for Derby. I was like, that's right. Yep, absolutely. Stay comfortable. This is not about hurting ourselves. Although you did hurt yourself, if I remember correctly, with all of your shoes and your flip-flops.
Beauty is pain. So that's why I keep telling myself. Okay, so be honest. Did you spend more time watching the race or people watching?
Oh, people watching.
I was going to say, I think we did a lot of people watching.
A lot of people watching.
A
yes,
lot. But
yes.
it's hard not to.
And I think, too, we were so excited because we're like, oh, our tickets come with endless drinks and endless food. This is going to be fantastic. And at the end of both days, we were like, I didn't eat much and I didn't drink much. Like I literally had one mint julep. And now, I think for Oaks, I drank quite a few lilies. Even from the hotel, they're handing you lilies as you go out the door. So
as soon as we got there.
And it's like, I think it was Derby Day in the afternoon. When they started shutting down the merch stores, because we did a lot of shopping and things like that. And then I'm like, there's some really good like specialty foods down there. And we've got a couple hours to Derby. I should go down there and sample stuff. That was like the first any kind of food I had. So and oh my gosh, the photo ops. I mean, there were so many photo ops, but just watching the people and the hats. How many times did we point at a hat like, oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. Oh gosh.
So horse history is such a huge part of Woodford County too. Keeneland is literally right down the street where Golden Tempo trains. Yeah. So why do you think horses became such an important part of this area's identity?
I think that was an early gamble that some of the earlier historic figures, like the Alexanders, I mean, they came in. I was actually commenting just recently. I was trying to find something, in Woodford County, that's a lot of, trying to go back in time, trying to find historically where things were from the map perspective. And I was looking at the 1877 Atlas for Woodford County. And I noticed, I was like, oh my gosh, did you know that the Alexander, that their tracks, they had 2 tracks and that they're literally on the 1877 Atlas. They're literally physical things they noticed on there. So, I mean, that development, I had a dear a dear mentor in the archival field. He was working on a project, and I don't want to give away exactly what he was doing. He's deceased, but his daughter is very much a historian now, so she may take up her dad's mantle. But he had a theory. He was actually researching some of these horse farms, and he talked about how that the racing industry altered the type of enslaved people that they kept on the farm, that it had to do with sizing. I mean, they needed jockeys. They needed a deep bench of jockeys and things like that. And then sometimes you can see the farms that are experimenting more in those early days of racing by like, a whole bunch of 15, 16-year-old enslaved boys. Like you'll see that, and that you can actually, kind of get that, plus their taxes, you can kind of put some of this together. And so I think they were, again, it's kind of like bourbon. I think it was a little bit of an early gamble that they were doing this. And I mean, obviously horses did well here, clearly. I mean, horses thrived here. So, I mean, and then of course, and then there's the horse Lexington, which I love. I love the story of the horse Lexington. Just he was, I'm not going to tell that story here, but go look up Lexington, and if you go to Lexington, he's like a visual figure that you see, and it's like that bloodline is, and Alexander's had a little bit part of that history as well. So that created that kind of Secretariat-esque kind of fervor for the racing industry. I think was the horse Lexington and that bloodline, and that, like, I believe 19 out of 20 of the horses that ran this year were descendant of Secretariat, and of course he goes back to Lexington. So by default, a lot of them do go back to Lexington. So it's that whole thing. It's like that pedigree history we love to keep track of as we sip those mint juleps, and it just all goes together very well.
And one thing I love about the history room is how it connects all of these stories together: bourbon history, horse history, local families, old businesses, newspapers, photographs. It's basically a time machine for someone who has never visited the history room before. What can they expect?
We just recently did our inventory, and I was kind of surprised at the fact that I could finally see the numbers. So we have over about 5,000 books, archival items and such. And then we also have over 5,000 subject files, which are the bulk of those are family files. So, if you've got your own family history or any kind of heritage with Woodford County, this is a really great place to dig into those. And just, it's funny. We had somebody that, I can't recall his name, but he writes for the Woodford Sun, but he writes for the sports column. And so he came in researching baseball, and he said, I heard somebody said we had a baseball team back in like 1908. I was like, oh, okay. Maybe you could try newspapers. I'm like, let's see if we've got a file on that. We did. And he said, this is great. Everything. He said, I've just learned more sitting here for 5 minutes than I ever would have looking through the newspapers, because the Historical Society over the years had like little magpie collections. Every time they saw a story, they're clipping that sucker and they're putting it in a file. So it's it's old school way of researching, but boy, it really does pay off. There's a lot there that especially online, is not usually going to get you. He said, I tried online to try to find this stuff, and he said I couldn't find it. So, yeah, it's great.
And before we wrap up, let's talk about some upcoming history room programs and events. What are you most excited about right now?
I'm probably, there's a couple things real quick. I do want to mention that the Historical Society and the History Room, we have a new kind of history hop event. There are different programs. It'll be basically a monthly program that's going to happen. It's a joint program, and it'll be kind of various topics, So once a month, look for the History Hop programs, and we'll have various speakers coming in. And the reason it's a hop is because we may not always be at the library. We may be over at the Historical Society. We may be at a distillery someday if I have my way. We may be all over the place. We may be in Midway over at their museum. We may be all over. So there's, we want to really kind of broaden what it is that we do with our programming. So look for those. Those are brand new. And then I think the big project that we need a lot of help with that I'm really excited about is the Finding the 700. It's the USCT Soldier Project. So, Woodford County is known for having, percentage-wise in the state, the highest per capita of enslaved individuals. And so Sue Finney and I actually started talking about this. I mean, they started researching this before I ever got here, but they had started researching how do we identify all of the Black men who signed up to fight in the Civil War once Lincoln allowed that. And so they had been up to like 400 or so. And Brenda Jackson came up, she piped up and she's like, I think it's going to be closer to 800 guys. And so I said, well, let's see if we can't research this. So I created a database that we have, and I started using the muster rolls for Woodford County that is housed at the State Historical Society, because that's all online, and just started transcribing the information. And we're up to like 716 so far. And the thing is, we don't know a lot about these guys. We don't know. Now, the information did give us their enslaver name, which is a really big clue to pre-Civil War history for those who were enslaved. There were freemen that also signed up. We'd love to be able to tell more of their stories. I mean, we know that we more than likely can't tell 700 stories. Some of the guys, I mean, we've got probably like, 8 John Smiths. I don't know if we can actually decipher all of the John Smiths to tell any kind of significant history, but we'd like to at least research to find out, where did they go after the war? Where's their burial location? Different things like that. Did they have a family? We'd like to even build that a little bit in family search trees. It's kind of a long process here, but as I've said, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And we need research help. That's the biggest thing. We want this to be a community research project. So we've just launched it. There is going to be probably coming out very soon. There will be a little mini video on like how you can help. We also have a little sheet in the library in the history room it's a little QR code that'll get you to the project page. And I was going to say, if I could pull that up right now, I could tell you where it is to go, but that's okay. The video will be posted soon. We're going to post it on our YouTube channel. It'll be posted on Facebook, and that'll give you a visual, like how you can take the steps to research these guys and make it count, get it part of the database, and a part of an online exhibit we're going to have that'll be free to everyone all the time. That's kind of the goal, is that all this is free. And even someday we may go old school and print them out and have a nice list in the library as well. And with the stories, as we build them, we'll also old school print those out and put them in those vertical files so people can find them when they're looking for their family. But but also online and free. So that's one I'm really excited about.
Well, Cheri, thank you so much for joining me again. Always learn something new when we talk, and I love getting to highlight the incredible history right here in Woodford County. And thank you all for listening to Woodford County Hometown Highlights, part of the What's Up Woodford Network. Be sure to visit the history room at the Woodford County Library and stay connected for upcoming programs and events. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.